I am a proud descendant of ancestors from Deir Yassin, Palestine, the first village to be occupied in 1948. My grandfather still has the key of his parents' home, and that is something that I always say I grew up in the most Palestinian home in Brooklyn, New York, and I take so much pride in that. And I am super excited as an educator and a curriculum leader to share the voices of these authors.
I was born in Palestine. I was born in a little village just outside of Jerusalem. This village that's right outside Jerusalem would have taken 10 minutes to go to visit Jerusalem. That was part of my childhood before checkpoints sprouted all around the place. So what used to be something that would take us 10 minutes now would takes over 2.5 hours. So growing up in Palestine, growing up in a place where from a very young age, and my family immigrated here when I was 5, from a very young age, I was very cognizant of being the other. And so this was very interesting for me because I was the other in this little village in Palestine, because there was a consciousness that we are not like them, that our rights were limited. And then when my family immigrated to Chicago, and I could say I'm the most Palestinian in Chicago. I don't know if anybody else wants to claim that, but yeah, growing up in Chicago, coming here and not knowing a word of English, just speaking Arabic, being fully immersed in classes where everyone around me was speaking English and I was the only Arabic speaking. I was also felt like an other here.
But my
And
grandmother had an amazing vineyard. And so I learned to speak fluent Arabic there with my cousins, picking fruits right from the tree. And then during the grape harvest, I would help my grandmother when she sold to the locals. So she would have her old fashioned scale, and my cousins and I, would help her bag, help people carry their kilos of grapes home. And that has found its way into a project, a writing project. And
I was born to Palestinian immigrant parents. They came in 67. I think they always thought they would raise me. I think they always thought they would go back to Palestine after the war. And then 1975, I come along and things are still not better. And I think they realized that they were going to be raising me in America. And, and I always tell people that they realized they couldn't raise me in Palestine, so they raised Palestine in me. I was very much raised in a Palestinian centric home. I was always reminded that even though Palestine is not on the map, it is very much alive and it's very much a real, real place. Whenever
So
we
my father is Palestinian. My mother is a white Midwestern American. I think a lot of my work sits on that intersection of what does it mean to be someone of Middle Eastern descent from Midwestern America and sort of navigating these identities. But my earliest childhood memory is of my grandma, who at the time was living in Jordan, coming to visit me in Cincinnati, Ohio, when I was 4 years old. And I was sitting on her lap, and she was telling me a story about mermaids that live in the Dead Sea. And my grandma was the first storyteller in my life, and she's a reason that I'm a storyteller today. And I think that what she taught me through her stories is the idea of how powerful stories can be, how stories can help us to remember, to move on, to preserve. And so I grew up in a family where storytelling was really, really important and also was a tool for me to navigate my identity. I remember.
I was the only Palestinian ever, like in any of my classes and in all of my schools. I think there was maybe 3 Palestinian families in the community. And I've been told that I've been talking about Palestine since preschool. I had a preschool teacher tell my mom she's a bit worried for me because I'm talking about a lot of violence and things happening. Obviously I was seeing what my parents were watching on the news and just very acutely aware of it. I remember the first time I wrote an op-ed, like a letter to the editor in 7th grade. And just, throughout my upbringing, I've just been very vocal about being Palestinian. And it's weird because I am in such a small city, but I felt like that was even more reason to show who we are and to teach about Palestine.